And hello, everybody, and welcome to the Weekday Warriors of Wrestling for Tuesday, January 25th. You guys will probably hear this on Wednesday, January 26th. We are going to be previewing the 2022 Royal Rumble. It's amazing. Where do the years go? And we're going to be doing, if you've been a long-time listener of the show, we're going to do one of our flashback shows, which we generally do around WrestleMania or SummerSlam or the Royal Rumble. We talk about past ones and just go on tangents about our favorite moments from those. But yeah, let's talk about this Sunday, Patrick. We got six matches on the card.
That's a bit high for the Rumble, isn't it?
Yeah, but they've got to get both the men's and the women's Rumble, and then they got their two title matches, so it's always at least four, and then you'll have like a few other things. So this year we've got the men's and the women's. We've got Brock Lesnar against Bobby Lashley. Becky Lynch versus Doudrop. I don't even think we're going to like discuss that. Like, duh. We're going to have Edge and Beth Phoenix against The Miz and Maurice. And we've got Roman Reigns defending the Universal Championship against Seth freaking Rollins. Now, it's been a while since we've done this show. Like, I think it's been over a month.
Since last year.
Yeah, since last year. And obviously the big thing that happened with WWE was that at day one, it was supposed to be Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar, part 782 in their epic series of matches that will culminate at WrestleMania again for the third. It'll be the third time. And when they main event, because they will main event, it'll be the only. I was going to say the only people who have main evented three times, but like they weren't singles matches, so.
Well, 31 started as a singles match, and then Seth changed it with the Money in the Bank.
Yeah, I mean, so it pretty much counts. Like,
yeah, I'd say they have a WrestleMania main event trilogy, certainly on par with Okada and Tanahashi.
Yeah, and nobody in WWE, because even Rock and Austin 19 wasn't the main. So, all right, so okay, yeah, so let's get into this. At day one, Roman had COVID and he was supposed to wrestle Brock. And instead, Brock was inserted into the Big E, Bobby Lashley, Kevin Owens, Seth Rollins match. And Brock won, because if you know Vince McMahon, you know when a replacement enters a match, that replacement is going to win the match because he wants to give him a surprise. So now Brock is the WWE champion. Roman's the Universal champion. How do we get to where we want to go? Well, I think it definitely seems like the plan. I mean, from my perspective, is that they're going to do a switcheroo, and it actually makes sense in the story. The only things I've really been following in WWE have been the Roman Reigns Brock Lesnar thing and this Roman Seth feud. But when Heyman suggested that, hey, let's have a match, and Roman's like, no, I'm not going to do business with anyone that does business with Heyman. So Reigns basically was like, I don't need to wrestle Brock Lesnar. If Reigns loses the title, then he has to wrestle Brock Lesnar. So what I think is going to happen, and I think what many people think is going to happen, is Rollins wins and beats Reigns for the title, which would continue the story that they're telling, which is the fact that like Rollins always beats Reigns. And then you can have Rollins and Big E or Lashley or whatever they wanted to do at WrestleMania, which apparently the plans are still the same. They're just switching titles. And Reigns can challenge Brock. So you have like, I don't know, whoever's challenging Seth win the Royal Rumble, and you have Roman challenge Brock. And then you can get all the things you want. And it would actually be a compelling reason for Roman to have to wrestle Brock. Like, he wants the title, Brock wants Roman. So like, you actually get to tell the story that you wanted to tell.
Yeah, they and this is, I know we made fun of him for doing this match so many times, but this is probably the most interesting that they've ever been together.
Yes.
And I think having Paul Heyman closely associated with Roman has certainly helped out a lot with that. And this setup they've got going for Reigns and Lesnar this time around is a lot more interesting than it has been in years past. But I'm actually really excited. It's the main reason I'm checking out the Rumble. I'm actually really excited to see Brock and Lashley. You pitched that duo to me, and I'm like, that could be a really cool Smash Mouth, bulls in a china shop type of match, almost like Goldberg and Brock were a few years back. And I'm like, That could be really interesting. So I'm checking out this pay-per-view just for that match, and I'm expecting Brock to win, but I'm also expecting a bit of a hard-hitting, cool match to result from it.
Well, that was, that was the match when Lashley came back, and I want to say like 2017, I think it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like they're like, oh, Brock and Lashley. Like that was what people thought was going to happen like decently quickly. And it never did. And I remember like during the Samoa Joe feud with Lashley, and they're like, who's going to wrestle Brock? And it's like, oh, it's probably going to be Lashley and Brock. So this match has been like in the minds of people for a very long time. So I'm glad that they're finally, when you only have Brock for so many dates, and there are a fair number of matches that people want to see him in, I'm glad that they've been able over the past few years to get those matches out there, whether it was AJ and Brock, whether it was Finn Balor and Brock, whether it was Daniel Bryan and Brock. I mean, the Orton one I thought was not what it could have been. I thought Orton should have been more competitive in that, but there were all these matches that people want to see. We never really got Brock and Batista, but you're going to get Brock and Lashley. So, they've been varying up the opponents a little bit, because for a very long time, it was like Brock and Roman, or like Brock and Braun. And that was it. Or like Brock and Cena.
Yeah. Yeah. And they, even Brock and Goldberg after a while got a little bit old. And Goldberg
and Brock and Undertaker. Like he definitely has his repeat opponents.
For sure.
I actually would say my most anticipated match is the Reigns Rollins match. I've actually enjoyed this feud. Roman, so Roman's been kind of like the final boss of WWE for a while. Like he's beaten everybody. He's like, he broke CM Punk's record for like longest modern champion and everything. And like, he pretty much beats everybody, even Brock. Like I know they left some doubt in that Saudi Arabia match, but for the most part, Roman just kills everybody. He pins Daniel Bryan and Edge at the same time at WrestleMania and stuff. Mm-hmm. So there's been an interesting dynamic with him having this kind of aspect of doubt with Rollins. And when they had that episode where he's like, I've got an opponent for you, and then he just shows up and laughs at him. I love that this like weird, goofy man that's like insane is somehow like the Achilles heel to Roman Reigns, and Roman kind of knows it. And I don't know, it's just a nice bit of kayfabe like in there, like this guy's really good against this guy, as opposed to the normal WWE thing where they're like, let's just have them beat each other an equal amount of times. So I do like that dynamic, and I think it's been pretty good so far. I think the promo where Rollins mentioned Mox, which was pretty ballsy, was interesting to say the least, especially when Mox had just come back this week. So I think this is going to be a good match, and it's like I guess we haven't seen them really wrestle since like I don't know, like 2016.
It's been a while. I don't know if it's been that long ago, but then again, I've watched so little WWE in the last year and a half that they could have had like 500 matches in that time, and I wouldn't know it.
All right, men's and women's Royal Rumble. What do you want to start off with here?
I want to start off with the women's one because I'm looking over. They're really relying on the past for this one. The obvious stand, is Mickie James, who's coming in as the current Impact Women's Champion,
which they've mentioned.
Yeah, which is very surprising. That's very un-WWE of them. I kind of like that they're mentioning
the forbidden door is open.
Yeah, indeed. But yeah, they're really relying on the past with this one. The Bellas are back, Lita's back, Michelle McCool, Summer Rae, who they treated like a big deal. Like I've seen that headline thrown all over the place. It's like, I mean, it's just Summer Rae. It's not it's not the end of the world. And Kelly is the other one. It's like, has the women's roster just gotten or maybe it's just because it's spread across two shows. Has it just gotten that thin to where they need to rely so heavily on past stars?
Well, they've shown that they're not interested in building up people that aren't Charlotte, Sasha, Bianca, and maybe Bayley. I mean, Rhea Ripley is kind of up there, but like they've really have not developed anyone else. So I'm looking at the wrestlers they have. It's It's Ripley, Nikki, Dana Brooke, Carmella, Zelina, or I'm sorry, Queen Zelina. I just don't understand why everybody that wins a Queen or King tournament has to become a fucking king. It's nuts to me. Tamina, can you imagine if Steve Austin was like, I'm King Stone Cold?
He never even put on the crown or anything.
Would that have benefited him? Like, come on.
No.
Shotzi, Natalia, Aaliyah, Naomi, Shayna Baszler, Charlotte, the Bellas, Lita, Michelle McCool, Kelly, Summer Rae, Mickey James, Bianca Belair, and Liv Morgan. Yeah, they've done a really poor job. That said, I don't think it matters because I heard a rumor today that Ronda Rousey is they're attempting to get her involved in this, and Ronda Rousey and Becky Lynch would be their preferred match. So I would put some money on Ronda taking this thing.
That would make the most sense. I mean, it's probably a few years too late because there was a time when, and no disrespect to Charlotte Flair, but when they did that build up for WrestleMania, I think you said it, I said it, it should have been Becky and Ronda at that one WrestleMania because that would have been the bigger match. And adding a third body, regardless of who it was, just kind of diluted it.
Yeah. No, and I agree with that. I don't know if it's too late though, because I mean, you still have like Ronda took one loss, and it was, like it was that like pinfall victory that like wasn't a pinfall and stuff. So there's still like that doubt, like that did Becky legitimately beat her, that you can go back to for that. So if they do the one-on-one this time, like, Ronda's still a protected character. I said it, I think Ronda has a Brock-like ability or a Kurt Angle ability that's just, she naturally understands like how pro wrestling works and like does it really fucking well. Like her match against Charlotte at Survivor Series, her first match with Angle against Triple H and Stephanie, like all those, like those were big money matches. They felt like fights. She feels like a competitor, and it's hard. Not everyone can do that. If you look at Cain Velasquez, look at Dan Severn, look at some of these guys that come in and are like, okay, just because you're a great MMA person does not mean it's going to translate over to wrestling. Like Brock did it, but I mean, he went the other way. But yeah, it's tough. It's fucking tough to do. But I mean, look at Marina Shafir and Jessamine Duke. I mean, they didn't have that ability. I mean, Shayna does, but like, Shayna's super talented. So yeah,
there's a theatrical aspect to wrestling that it helps to have that legitimate athletic and competitive background, fighting atmosphere, but it's not be all end all because it's like you said, Dan Severn is probably the best example. And there was a time when that dude, back in his UFC days, he could take down anybody. But you look at him, and he looks like Ned Flanders, and it doesn't translate well to pro wrestling. So there's a believability that comes with having that kind of background, but it isn't be all end all.
As far as charisma goes, I've got none at all. Yeah, no, I mean, I think I said it when I saw Velasquez take down Brock at that first SmackDown show. I'm like, listen, I've literally seen Cain Velasquez beat Brock Lesnar in a real fight. And when he took him down in that match, I did not believe it. So like that tells you all you need to know about the differences in skill sets between pro wrestling and MMA. So yeah, I think Ronda's going to take this one.
All right, and I think that would be a nice surprise. And well, it's kind of, people are speculating on it now, but I think I'm looking at this list of competitors. I'm like, it almost has to be like a big surprise.
Yeah. So we go to the men's Rumble. I'm going to read the names we've got. From Raw, we've got Angelo Dawkins, Montez Ford, Rey Mysterio Jr., Dominic Mysterio, Austin Theory, Johnny Knoxville, Sheamus. From SmackDown, we've got Sheamus, Happy Corbin, Madcap Moss, Sami Zayn, Kofi Kingston. And then from Raw, this very Raw heavy Rumble, by the way, Damian Priest, AJ Styles, Big E, Kevin Owens, Omos, Randy Orton, Riddle, Chad Gable, Otis, Dolph Ziggler, and Robert Roode.
Here's another one up.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, is anyone jumping out at you there?
The only two names I'm looking at, and Big E only because he was just the
Yeah.
champion.
Yeah.
I still, and again, this comes from me not following WWE too closely over the last year, but I don't see Big E as like a main event guy, but that's because I didn't watch any of his title reign. But like, I'm looking at this as like, it's got to be either Big E or AJ, maybe as like a dark horse, but unless they've got some kind of big surprise with the Forbidden Door, like I can't fathom who could win this thing.
All right, here's my top two. I think so. Big E would be the natural winner for me if I didn't know that they don't look at him as like a top guy.
Mm.
I don't think they do. I've heard that like, oh, Big E and Rollins was the Mania match on that side, but like then I've heard that like, oh, they just thought they don't. It doesn't look like Big E's he'll be like when Kofi Kingston lost the title. He's just gonna go back down and do what he was doing. So my other thought, and this, of course, by the way, everyone, this hinges on Rollins winning the title. If he doesn't, these predictions make no sense, so forget it. The other one could be Owens, since they're so like intertwined right now. You could do that match. So those are the ones I think would be most likely. My other thought is like you just give it to somebody out of nowhere, like Damian Priest, like a guy that they're like trying to make into something big. I don't know.
Kind of do the Rumble 93 idea, the original idea that they had where Scott Steiner was going to come out of nowhere and that was, I think the plan was that was going to be his debut and he would just come in and win the Royal Rumble and get the WrestleMania title.
What?
I've heard that story. I think Bruce Pritchard's talked about that where they'd signed the Steiner brothers and there was an idea that was kicked around for Rumble 93 where they would introduce Scott Steiner and he would win the Rumble his first night in the company.
And then he didn't want to be split up from Rick.
Yes, that's the story I've heard.
All right. Interesting. Wow. Okay.
So it's like what you're kind of suggesting could be not debut a guy, but something along that line where somebody just comes the hell out of nowhere and just wins this thing.
I'm very interested in this. Scott Steiner wins the Rumble in '93. So who would he have wrestled at Mania then?
I don't know if they had thought that far ahead, but I would guess Bret Hart.
Would it have been for a title shot, do you think? Because that was the first one that it like officially.
That was the first one where the title shot was on the line. I believe so. I believe that again, this was like the planning stages of setting this thing up to use the Rumble to set up WrestleMania. And I think that was one of the ideas that they kicked around. Let's just give it to this hot young babyface.
All right. All right. So who knows? We don't know who's going to win that one. So,
maybe Randy Orton will win it.
Yeah, he's always the old standby. You need someone to win it. It can be Randy Orton. Okay. So let's go back in time here. Let's do a few of these, Patrick.
Okay.
I'm going to randomly select. And here we go. It's I feel like we do this one a lot, but I guess we'll talk about it. It's the 1998 Royal Rumble.
Yeah, we have talked about this one before. I mean, it's a good Rumble. It's a very good one.
It is a good Rumble. I just feel like we've said all there is to say about it.
Yeah, if you want, we can pick another one, but yeah, go back and watch our past shows. We've definitely talked about this one a lot.
Yeah. All right. Let's do another one. I feel like I'm cheating, but hey, here we go. Why don't we talk about Yokozuna's win in 1993?
Good. Yeah, this was a very interesting show. This is the first year after not just Hogan, but a lot of that old guard from the 80s. Like Warrior was gone, Piper was gone, Hogan, like I said, was gone. Savage was slowly being phased out. So there's a real like changing of the guard attitude going into 93, where we're shifting into the new generation era.
Yeah, because going over on this show is Yokozuna, Bret Hart, Bam Bam Bigelow, Shawn Michaels, and the Steiner brothers. And with the exception of the Steiner brothers, that is pretty much the cornerstones of the new generation era.
Yeah, and I'm looking at this like Boss Man. This was, I believe, his last night in the company before going back down south. And Yeah. Savage was the last one eliminated in the Rumble, where you would think, I'll be honest, watching it as a kid, I thought Savage was going to win because I just couldn't fathom like this new guy, even though he was a monster, I just couldn't fathom him winning the Rumble. I just assumed it was going to be Savage once I saw when it was getting close to the end. And when Yokozuna won, I was kind of shocked, but that was kind of where they were thinking back then, where it was like, we need to go young and we need to go fresh and new.
And we need to go guys that don't look like they're on steroids, which Yokozuna,
Yes.
Bret Hart, Bam Bam Bigelow, and Shawn Michaels do not look like they're on steroids.
I think wasn't Bret on steroids, but he just didn't look it.
He didn't look like it. And I mean, eventually, like Shawn was like in 97 and 98 was definitely on steroids, but he wasn't at this time. He was, he wasn't quite chunky Shawn yet. That was like in the summer and fall. But you know, like for the most part, these guys did not look like they were. I mean, Razor didn't. I mean, he may have been on, but he had like that long, lean body. So because this was, we made a video on this, right? Because this was like Warrior and Bret was initially the match for this show. Like it was never announced, but that was where the plans were going.
That was what Bret says he was told. I've never heard anybody else talk about this except for Bret. So I don't know.
But it makes sense to me because like, what else are you going to do with Warrior in that bit? So you bring him back at Mania, then he does a bunch of, then he does some stuff with Shango, right? Is his run in the spring. And then he does the babyface match with Savage. Then he teams with Savage against, or is supposed to team with Savage against, Flair and Razor. So like, I think you have to use him in a world title match here.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Bret was also supposed to work with Hogan later in '93 after Mania 9, and that obviously didn't happen. So it's like they kept trying to give Bret that big win over somebody from the '80s, and I guess except for the Piper match at 8, it just didn't happen.
I mean, I'm sure Bret feels differently, but I do not think if it was Warrior and Bret was going to go over.
Really? Bret said that, again, this is all according to Bret. He said that the match was pitched to him. He was going to beat Warrior with the sharpshooter clean middle of the ring.
Yeah, I mean,
but would that have actually happened? I'm sure that's what Vince would have told him. But
I mean, he told him he was going to beat Hogan too at SummerSlam, and Bret was working Jerry Lawler at that show. So I don't see there's any way Vince has the Warrior tap out. Like, here's the thing: it with Warrior was either you're not going to use him because he's roided up to the gills, which is what happened. They're like, you're like, can't really use you, get out of here. Or you're going to use him and he's going to be in a top spot. Like he had always been in the top spot. Like from when he beat Hogan, like even if he wasn't like the champion, he would work Savage. He'd work, he worked Savage as both a babyface and a heel, but he was going to be in that spot. I think it's more likely Warrior beats Bret and then beats Yoko at Mania. I like, that's how I would see it.
That's probably what would have happened had Warrior stuck around. It's kind of, Warrior's one of those guys where it's, and Jim Cornette used this line to describe Batista, and I think it's very apt here, maybe even more apt. Look at the guy. He's going to be main event or nothing. It's and that's just, he's just one of those guys. He's like, he's got the look, and he's got this batshit crazy, colorful character that people connect with. So it's like, he can't be, curtain jerking on the first match. He's got to be either main event or nothing. And that's kind of what Warrior's role was.
And the well, let me get it right here. And here's the thing, like people are like, oh, well, they wanted new people. Like Warrior is 2 years younger. I mean, he's dead now, but he was 2 years younger than Bret was.
That's another interesting thing. People think of Warrior as being like really old at this time, and it's like, he wasn't that old at all.
It was a marketing shift, which I totally get. Like Bret had not been seen as a top guy, so that's why he was newer, even though he was technically
fresher.
older. He was fresher, and he also was totally different than that era. Like Bret, Shawn, Yoko, and I mean maybe Yoko probably could have fit in, but he was a little different. And Diesel and Razor, those were very different types of characters than Hogan and Warrior and Savage were. They weren't over the top in your face. Like it wasn't that like that era was very much like the stereotypical wrestler screaming at you stuff, right? And
snort cocaine and cut a promo.
I
swear that's what most of them did.
And this was more like shoulders back, a little more relaxed, not too much, but like it was just different. I mean, think of a Razor promo. He was like, yeah, he's like, he was chilled, relaxed. Same with Diesel for the most part. These guys were different. So that's like from a presentation standpoint, how it was different. But that said, I feel like Vince probably couldn't have resisted another run with Warrior.
Well, he gave Hogan another run, so that tells you pretty much all you need to know right there. Where
Yeah,
Vince is going to go back. He might change his mind once in a while, but he's always going to fall back on the things that he really believes in.
Yeah. So let's go through this show. We have the Steiners and the Beverly Brothers. I do not even remember this match.
I don't either. I'm a huge mark for the Steiner brothers. I love their work in the NWA and WCW. Their WWE run was solid-ish.
Short.
It was very short. They only lasted a year, but I much prefer their work with like Money Inc. and the Head Shrinkers and teams like that. And here it's like the Beverly Brothers. That kind of felt like an act that got old the minute they debuted it, and it was just the Steiners beating a low-level team, and that's pretty much all there was to it.
Because the Steiners make it to 94 Royal Rumble, but not long after that, right?
I think that might have been their last show.
Did they just sign like a year contract or something, or what was the deal?
I don't know all the specifics, but they like you said, they did not last very long. It was only a year, and I don't know. It's one of the weirdest things. It's also strange because you think if they had been around just a few years earlier, they would have excelled like crazy because they would have had way more teams to work with.
Yeah. The Rockers could have bumped for them. They could have done some stuff with the Hart Foundation. Yeah.
Demolition. They could have done some great stuff. Road
Warriors. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Then we have Shawn Michaels defending the Intercontinental Championship against Marty Jannetty. This was a good match. I think it won like the PWI Match of the Year. That's
kind of crazy to think about.
It is. I know. I remember, I know Shawn was disappointed in it because it wasn't as good as the matches they had been having on house shows. And I think Marty got fired for this because I don't know, Shawn was like fucked up the night before. And then Shawn said Marty was, or I don't know. And then Marty got fired. I want to point out that Marty has admitted to killing a man. So like, let's not act like he did all this like non-crazy shit.
Yeah, it's a very weird situation. I think I've heard both guys talk about it, and it's basically Vince didn't like the match, and they were trying to shift blame on each other. It's like, oh, he was fucked up. He was fucked. Let's be honest. At that point in time, they were both probably fucked up doing it, but they'd worked fucked up probably 2 nights earlier. So who knows? That's
and Vince picked the guy he liked better, and that was it.
And the one he had plans for. I mean, let's be honest. Yeah. Ended up being a good move, but I'm with you. I think the match is good, but given the history of the Rockers, the excellent split that they did, that infamous barbershop skit, you would expect this match to be far and away the best thing on the show, and it's not. Like, it's almost on par with kind of a random title match between Brett and Razor that doesn't have a whole lot of build into it, and it's like you would expect it to just blow you out of the water. It's just kind of like, that was good. And then it's pretty much just as good as the best things on this show. So it's a disappointment.
Are you forgetting when Razor attacked poor Sweet Owen?
Was that the first time they acknowledged that Owen and Brett were brothers?
I mean, it was the first time it was like explicitly in the story. So I guess.
Yeah.
That was, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, I like the, excuse me. I liked the Brett Razor match. I always thought Brett and Razor had really good matches together. They had this one, they had the King of the Ring one. Mm-hmm. Those are off the top of my head, the big ones they had. But I always thought they worked real solid together.
Yeah, Razor, he's a guy that Scott Hall, for all his demons and everything, he's really underrated as a worker. I always liked him.
I feel like he's pretty correctly rated. Like everybody says Scott Hall was great. He was just fucked up and couldn't capitalize on shit.
Well, see, I'm thinking about like Ric Flair's comment. It's like Shawn went out there and had a match with a ladder. And I'm like, that's not entirely fair.
We all know Ric Flair's opinion and what you can do with
it. And some people have said that. It's like, no, Razor can carry his own weight as a worker.
Yeah. I mean, it's a silly statement. We also had Bam Bam and Big Boss Man, which it's 10 minutes long, so it wasn't a squash, but I remember like Bam Bam winning like decently clean and just like, yeah, this was like 92 and 93 is like as Raw starts, like Patrick was saying, you can see like the transition from like the rock and wrestling era to the new generation. And they're like, these are the types of guys we're going to push now. They're like, they're going to look different. They're going to look more modern for 1993. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think wrestling should do that every once in a while. The problem is AEW has pretty good like turnover and stuff, but like WWE, like fucking The Miz has been in the company longer than like Steve Austin. Like he's been in there as long as Triple H was like an active competitor, which is fucking insane. Like Dolph Ziggler's been there forever. Like,
Sheamus.
yeah, there's this like stagnation of guys, and it's because for the longest time there was nowhere else to go. So you're just like, I mean, in the US at least. I mean, you can go to Japan and stuff, but most of these guys didn't. So they just stuck there, and then it's just these guys that just hang around. Like there was a point, if you, I think Triple H was the first guy to do it. So okay, so maybe Pedro Morales did it first, but Triple H is the first one. Like okay, so Pedro did it, but if you won the world title, you would never win the Intercontinental title.
Yes.
They would be like, because you'd be a top guy, you'd be like a protected guy, and you would not be on that level again. And Triple H did it in 2001 as part of the two-man power trip storyline, which is probably less like knocking him down than it was like, oh, we got to have all the belts for the storyline. But then like guys started to do it all the time. Like they'd have Jericho do it, they'd have like Jeff Hardy do it and stuff. And like it didn't matter. You could just move people up, down, up, and like, and they never would do that. Once you were like made in like WWE, that would be it. You'd be the top guy. But because they have so many guys, and because they have so much
and so many belts,
and so many belts, they're like, we've got to fucking do something with it,
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm glad you mentioned Jericho, because that was the first time I really noticed that. I'm like, wait, he was just world champion heading into WrestleMania, and he's fighting Ric Flair for the Intercontinental title. What's going on here? Like, why is he not? He should be, like you said, a made man, not to use mafia terms, but I don't know. It's just very strange. And it's like, to your point, it makes the roster seem very stagnant and very boring when I've seen Kofi Kingston win the Intercontinental title 9 million times, especially now, like he's already been world champion and he went right back to doing what he was doing before. So it's just very strange.
So it's an interesting thing. You can see how protected guys are. There's it's like the lineal world title. And it's basically like if you were ever beaten, like I can't remember what it is. Somebody did it on Reddit. And basically it's like the actual world title. Like if somebody was defeated, but they lost by DQ or whatever, or something, like the world title would go to somebody else and whatever. And like you'd see it would go back and forth between top guys. You can see like, oh, it goes from like Sean to Brett to Sid or something. And it pretty much goes like just between top guys until like 2004. And then you see like, I think Eddie has it. And then like, I don't know, like fucking Kenzo Suzuki or something. No, I'm not even talking about the champion. I'm talking about like who beat, like it's weird to explain, but it's like if you were beaten, even if the title wasn't on the line or whatever, you would lose the lineal world title. It's what they use in like boxing or whatever.
Oh yeah.
So wow. Like it goes from like Eddie to let's see if I can find it. It goes from like Eddie to like fucking
Is Luther Reigns a name on that list by any chance?
I think so. Hold on, let me see.
Jeez. Mark Jindrak, one of the lineal world champions. That'd be funny.
Yeah, let me see if I can do it here. Let's see. Hold on, all. Okay, yeah. So it's basically like every time you compete, you should have to defend the title. So even if you're beaten in a non-title match or whatever, like
Even like a tag match?
yeah, you would like lose the title. I think. Hold on, let's see. Here's what it says. A linear, they call it linear, but I think it should be lineal. But is the idea that the title holder should have to defend their title every time they compete. If this were true and we followed it in a straight line, thus linear, who would be champion? I started tracking, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so we go like this. I'm not going to do the whole thing, but it's like it goes from like Backlund to Patterson to Backlund. Actually, Hogan never gets it, believe it or not.
Interesting.
Yeah, it goes Backlund, Patterson, Backlund, Inoki, Vader, Ricky Chosu, Fukunami, Vader, Fukunami. I don't know why they're saying Fukunami. Isn't it Fujinami? Tatsumi Fujinami? I don't know. Anyway.
That's who I think. I don't know who Fukunami is. I would think
yeah, I think he's misspelled it. But anyway. Okay, so Rick Rude has it in 94, but he retired without defending it. So it reverts to the current WWF champion, which is Diesel, on May 4th, 95, thus merging the WWF linear history and WCW linear history. Okay, so then it's Brett, then it's Sean, then it's Sid, then it's Sean, then it's Triple H. because 97, the December 11th show when he beats him for the title. Then it's Austin, Kane, Austin, Mankind. So like, except for that, so here you go. Fuck. So it starts in 98, actually. So it's Mankind in 98, and then it's fucking Road Dogg. Then it's Big Boss Man. Then it's Undertaker. Then it's Steve Austin. Now we're going to well. Now it's Triple H. Oh, now it's Test. Now it's X-Pac. Now it's Kane. Now it's Rock. Now it's Benoit. Now it's Rock. Now it's Jericho. Eddie Guerrero. It's Val Venus now. Let's keep going. I'm going to go farther down here. Hogan gets it eventually in 2002.
Okay.
So here are some fun ones. In 2004, I think this is the stuff I'm talking about. Okay, here it is. It wasn't Rene Dupree. It's Eddie Guerrero, and then it's Devon Dudley. Then it's Paul fucking London. Then Booker T, then John Cena, then Carlito, then John Cena, then Orlando. It's just fuck. You can see how people were protected early on, where it goes from Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania to Sid at Survivor Series because they protected him. And then it goes from Sid to Shawn. And then Shawn keeps that for the entire year until a joke match against Triple H, who then, of course, loses to Austin. So Shawn would have done that anyway. But like, you can see where they don't like, let's see who the current as of this is. This is like 2019. It's Carmella. Because she beat R-Truth for the title. So
oh my God, that's amazing. Yeah, and I think this is also a problem with it. We've talked about the oversaturation of WWE programming and wrestling programming in general. I think AEW is even slightly guilty of this with the addition of Rampage, but it's just when you have so much programming, you got to fill it. The champion's got to wrestle on TV more, and it becomes less special. So it's this constant problem that keeps getting bigger and bigger the more programming there is. Whereas, when I was a kid, and I've said this before, when I was a kid, I almost never saw Hogan wrestle on TV because he was a special attraction. So you either had to go to the house shows, buy the pay-per-views, or one of those Saturday night's main events would roll around and be like, oh, Hogan's on, you got to watch it. And they made these guys feel like they were can't miss. And that's why when they started bringing in all these part-timers like Brock Lesnar, like The Rock, like, treating Undertaker like one, they actually felt special because they weren't on TV all the time.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I think people were like, Brock needs to be on TV every week. Don't get it, because if you saw Brock on TV every week in 02 and 03, it was certainly less cool than it is now.
I mean, even NFL teams get a bye week.
I know. And then they get the rest of the year off after their season's done.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do one more of these guys. And yeah. Okay. Here we go. It's the 2012 Royal Rumble.
I have to pull this one up.
Yeah, you do.
Oh my God, this one. Yeah.
This is a nuts card. So you open up the show. I love that we go from like 94 to 2012 and it's like everything's fucking insane now. Like, so you open the show with a steel cage match for the World Heavyweight Championship, or as I like to call it, the Intercontinental Championship. It's Daniel Bryan defending against Big Show and Mark Henry, which I remember Bryan beat Henry for the title. I'm sorry, beat Big Show for the title, right? That was it. Yeah.
He cashed in Money in the Bank, right?
Yeah. No, maybe he beat Mark Henry. Yes, he cashed in Money in the Bank because I think Big Show and Henry were feuding. And then he came in and like, so this was the culmination of this.
Yeah, okay. And he successfully defended the title here. I honest to God, I
don't remember this match. Yeah.
No, the only thing I remember about Daniel Bryan's reign was what happened at WrestleMania, which actually gave his career the shot in the arm it needed.
Yeah.
In a weird way.
Yeah, that was probably the best thing that happened to him. We have some 8 diva tag match that who cares? We don't need to talk about that. We had this must have been the Embrace the Hate storyline, one of the greatest storylines of all time. It was Kane and John Cena, and they couldn't even have John Cena beat Kane. They had to protect them both in a double count out. I do not remember this match. I do not remember this pay-per-view except for the top 2 matches.
I remember this feud, and it was one of those storylines that was so bad, especially when they worked in Zack Ryder and Eve Torres and that whole love triangle thing that was going on there. It reminded me, it was like watching The Room almost. It got to that level of absurdity and that ridiculous with the storyline to where it was so stupid, I kind of loved it. It was one of those situations. It was so ridiculous and so terrible and so awful that, again, go back and watch the segment where John Cena and Eve Torres made out by the ambulance and how the brokenhearted Zack Ryder was in his wheelchair.
Do you remember?
It was the funniest goddamn thing I've ever seen.
Do you remember that like fucking John Cena made out with his friend's girlfriend and then was like, she's a hoe? And it's like, dude, you like betrayed your friend. You're an asshole. You're like the worst person. You are continuously the worst person on this show.
Yes, I do. I think they saw how the crowd reacted, then they did a course correction the next week where it's like, oh, we just got to put all the heat on her because it can't go to John. Of course now. It's like, well, who the hell wrote a storyline where he steals his best friend's girl and then makes out with her right in front of him? Like, why'd you write that if you didn't want them to boo John Cena? What did you think was going to happen?
It's just a reminder that John Cena in kayfabe is the worst person.
Yep. And this was like peak John Cena too, where it was just
that was the thing. You're like, it's never gonna end. It's never fucking gonna end.
And now he's Peacemaker, and he can keep doing that as far as
that's fine. I mean, like he's not there anymore, so it's great. You know, it's fine. Then we had Brodus Clay beating Drew McIntyre in a minute. Drew McIntyre's career was heating up around this time.
Now, what happened to him? Because he was seriously like they brought him in like 05, I think.
No, it was 09.
09. And he was like one of their hot projects. It's like, oh, this is going to be the guy.
He was the chosen one. And
they literally called him Vince McMahon's chosen one.
The future shock.
And then out of nowhere, they just stopped pushing him. So what exactly happened there? Was there something that happened behind the scenes, or what?
I think they thought he was lazy and entitled or something.
Well, when you make the guy the chosen one,
I know.
Again, it's one of those self-defeating things. You kind of wrote yourselves into that corner, but okay.
Yeah. I can't believe this guy's got a big head after we pushed him to the top instantly. How could it have happened?
Otis Clay, good God, that's this is right when he was doing the Funkadactyl or Funkasaurus.
He was a space dinosaur.
Yeah, it's like we can't have him be a monster. He's got to be a dancing fat guy because that always works and never ever goes stale.
Every time. Then we had, I remember this match being pretty good. It was CM Punk defending the WWE title against Dolph Ziggler with Vicky Guerrero.
Yes, they're saying, according to the wiki that I have pulled up here, Jack Swagger and Vicky were banned from ringside. I don't remember that part of it, but I do remember The Royal Rumble, and I think we've talked about this in the past, this is normally where they do some experimentation with the title match. Where it's like, oh, let's put Hardcore Holly in there. Oh, let's put Razor in there. He's an unproven guy, but let's throw him in there. Because the Rumbles, I think the thought process is the Rumble itself is the draw. So the title match, do you even need a title match?
Let's do Edge and Rey Mysterio.
Yeah, let's just do something weird. Why not? Yeah. Just do something crazy. And sometimes it yields really good results, like this one. It's like, Punk and Ziggler, they can go out there and have a really good match together. And if memory serves me right, they did.
Yeah. No, this is like when they had, oh God, it was Angle and Mark Henry for the title. That was a weird one, right?
Yeah, and the crowd walked out at the end because they closed with it.
Yeah, they're like, we gotta have Undertaker come out on Evil Pegasus Thestrals.
And blow up the ring. And I remember, because that was the defense at the time, and I was one of the guys saying, it's like, again, does he have to blow up the ring? I mean, you can do the Undertaker thing, but does he have to blow up the ring? Is that something that you absolutely have to do? Okay, sure, buddy.
All right.
Trying to save you money here. Nobody's tuning into the show expecting the ring to blow up every time, but okay.
All right, so the Rumble is always remembered for Jericho not winning and Sheamus winning.
This was baffling. Like, I'm remembering how I was thinking. I think you and I were texting each other that night. We were like, they didn't just do that, right? All that build up for Jericho, and he loses the Rumble.
And then like Sheamus isn't even challenging for like the good title. I think that was
they just put Jericho in the title match anyway. So it's like, why not just have him win the Rumble? I don't understand.
I think their thought process back then was, well, we'll have the guy that wins the Rumble challenge the not good title, and then it'll maybe give some luster to that.
Yeah, sure. But again, like, this was when Jericho came back and he was doing that weird bit where he wouldn't talk. Yeah. And he built up all this mystery around himself. And then the week before the Rumble, he said one line about how the world will change as you know it. And everybody was like, oh my God, what's going to happen? He's going to win the Rumble. He's got to. And then he didn't. And it was the biggest wet fart ever. And it was, I don't know. It just felt like, why'd you set up this really cool thing with Jericho and then do nothing with it?
Yeah.
If you were just going to put him in the title match anyway, might as well give it, foster the really good idea that you have going.
This is the Rumble where like 18 commentators kept getting called in and then being surprised about it. And then but they knew about it. Like first Jerry Lawler was like, oh, I didn't know. And then they're like, I can't believe you're in the Rumble. And then Booker T went in and he's like, oh, I guess I'm in here too. And then like Michael Cole goes in, like they kept doing that bit. And each time they'd be like, oh.
Yeah, oh God, was that this one? Jeez. Yeah. This is when they were still running with heel Michael Cole, and I don't get it. I still don't get it. All these years later, it's one of the most forced and baffling things they've ever done.
Yeah. I also want to point out that Jey Uso was in this Royal Rumble. A reminder that the Usos have been in the WWE for over 10 years.
Again, that's like, wow. Amazing. And I'm looking through this list. Awesome Kong was in this under her Karma name.
Karma. Yeah.
This may have been her only pay-per-view appearance in the WWE.
Yeah. Let me see. Well, she appeared at Extreme Rules. But then she was pregnant or not. I can't remember what happened for that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then Sheamus won, and that was great because Sheamus had that great title reign where he was an idiot, and yeah.
Oh God, that feud with Del Rio. Oh my God, that was. You want to talk about baby faces who are assholes? That was the ultimate. Like,
yeah, remember when he was like, do you swear? And he's like, kiss my arse, and it's like, oh, like. That's like answering a form that says like sex, and you go, yes, please, like. What a fucking idiot. Okay.
Oh.
Anyway.
Good times. Cody Rhodes was in this too.
I know that was dashing, right? No, it was regular Cody, right?
I think he was doing the undashing and transitioning out of that. He may have been in
Dr. Doom Cody.
Yeah. Was this one of the years that I don't see his name on the list. So like, is this one of the 5 or 6 times they did a tease between the Rhodes brothers in the Royal Rumble and then did nothing?
The 5 or 6 times.
These two brothers are going at it in the Royal Rumble. It's like, are we going to get a match?
Remember Vince was like, that match is no good. And then they did Double or Nothing, and it was like the best match AEW's done.
yeah, exactly. And that match showed more than anything else. It's like, man, Vince really does hold these guys back, because Dustin has always been a really good worker, but they had him play the Goldust character, which has its positives and negatives. But you watch that match at Double or Nothing, it's like, man, they really held him back.
Yeah. All right. Well, probably let's talk about AEW next week. I like we've got
Beach Blast coming up.
Yeah, we got Beach Blast, and we'll talk about after that. But we may have run out of time here. But yeah, thanks everybody for joining us. Make sure to like, share, comment, yada. Also, send us emails. We'll try to do a mailbag next time. Patrick, what's that email?
Yes, that email is weekdaywarriors2020@gmail.com. The link will be in the description below.
All right, everybody. So we are out of here. For myself and Mr. Patrick Kelly, we are
signing off.